Appreciate it, Steve. Thanks to everybody for coming out on a morning. First of all, I want to send my condolences and thoughts and prayers to the Leach family in the Starkville, Mississippi State community. What a tragic loss for college football. And my wife, as you guys know, is from Starkville and a Mississippi State grad, and her parents and family still live over there. So I know have a special relationship with that community, and never worked for Coach Leach, but have enjoyed getting to know him in my time here in the league. When you go to SEC head coaches meetings, you sit alphabetically by schools. So it goes Mississippi, Mississippi State, Missouri, South Carolina, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. So we're kind of in our own little side usually. So I've enjoyed getting to know him and have never worked for him, but was talking with Lincoln Riley yesterday, who obviously has a long history with Coach Leach, and told Lincoln I felt like I did know him just from all the stories I had heard from Lincoln about Coach Leach. And I think when I was at Oklahoma, I think there were 16 people on our staff that had either played or coached for Mike Leach at different places. So ton of respect for him, and heartbreaking, tough day for college football as well. Certainly been a busy couple weeks since we talked last. I've been on the road recruiting. As soon as we finish up here, we're hitting the road recruiting as well. It's been great being able to get out and see some young men and their families that are committed to South Carolina, or that we're trying to get committed to South Carolina. We've got a huge weekend coming up, official visit weekends, and then a bunch of young men that are coming unofficially as well. A lot of our top prospects in the class of 2024 and beyond will be up here over the next few days as well. And you win with people, and we've got some great people that we're recruiting currently that we're bringing into this program as well. Can't wait to get our players back tomorrow to start bowl practice. They finished up exams last week, and that went really well. We're still waiting on a couple final grades, but proud of the work our guys did in the classroom. So certainly want to thank everyone over in the Doty Athletic Center for their work this past semester. We'll practice starting tomorrow and then practice up until December 22nd. We'll break the morning of the 22nd, give them a few days off around the holidays, Christmas time, and then we'll all reconvene in Jacksonville on Christmas night and start practice up there on the morning of the 26th. So couldn't be more excited about that. There's a ton of excitement about the Gator Bowl. Obviously, Greg McGarity, the president of the Gator Bowl, was here yesterday and spent some time with Coach Tanner and Chance Miller and myself, and I don't want to steal their thunder, but there's some awesome things going on down there in Jacksonville right now, and the excitement level for this game is as high as it's been in a long time. And though there's going to be a ton of garnet and black taking over the city of Jacksonville here in a couple weeks, couldn't wait to get down there. A lot of excitement and momentum going into the Gator Bowl, and that's because of the excitement and the momentum that we created here at South Carolina this past season, that we continue to build on that momentum. A 8-4 team, a nationally ranked team, going to a historic bowl game, beating Clemson for the first time in a while, snapping Clemson's home winning streak that they've had for however many years, 6 years, back-to-back wins for the first time ever in South Carolina football history, and only the 7th team in the history of college football to beat 2 top 10 teams as an unranked team in back-to-back weeks. So I feel like some people might need a reminder of some of the things that we've done here at South Carolina this past season, and the momentum that we've created since then as well. Maybe outside this building, there's a perception that the momentum slipped. That couldn't be further from the truth from a momentum standpoint. We are moving this program forward. The excitement level from recruits, and the excitement level from our current team is at an all-time high. We're constantly trying to get the right people, if you will, on the bus of where we're going. We're taking this program to places that it's never been before, and there's bumps along the way, and sometimes as you climb higher and higher, people get off that bus. There's an old saying, Steve Harvey, we showed the team one time about the people on your wagon, and make sure you got the right people on your wagon as you climb the hill. And we are certainly climbing to places that we haven't been before at South Carolina football, and we've got the right people on the wagon, and we're continuing to add people as well to that wagon, to that bus as we move forward as well. Wish I could show you some of the text messages and phone calls that I've gotten from current players on our team and guys that we're recruiting as well over the last 48, 72 hours that really validates what we're doing here as a program. as well. And part of that momentum that I'm talking about that we're continuing to build on is hiring Dowell Loggains as our offensive coordinator. I told you guys when we had that press conference over in the stadium the weekend after the Clemson game that there was a ton of interest in this position and that my phone was blowing up, and that is exactly the case. It was blowing up, and I talked to a lot of people that were interested in this position, sitting head coaches in college football that reached out to me, current coordinators in the NFL that reached out to me, current Power 5 coordinators. I easily could go out and hire the hot name, the guys that when you guys read the hot boards on some of y'all's websites, the names that were on there that the general public thinks that's the guru and that's the guy that we need to bring into the program. I'm not interested in winning the press conference, guys. I'm interested in hiring the best coach available for what we need as a program. I'm interested in not hiring the name that people recognize. I'm interested in hiring the guy that can continue to move this program forward. There were a lot of hot names, if you will, last year out there in college football. They got hired places that people that are not as aware of what's going on in college football said, oh my God, that is a home run hire by that school. Well, some of those schools are sitting home for Christmas right now because they're not even in a bowl game with what they did. So talked to a ton of people, all right? Clayton White and Pete Limbo, when we hired those two guys, probably there wasn't a lot of fanfare when we hired Clayton White and Pete Limbo. I'd say they've turned out to be pretty damn successful here at South Carolina. All right, so they weren't necessarily the hot name when we hired them. People that are in the profession know about Dowell Loggains. So I read your article this morning, Gene, and that's great. I'm sure in your research you did more than just say, well, I haven't heard of that guy before. Let me see what his stats said. Oh, well, he had a run as a coordinator in the NFL that maybe wasn't as successful that he wanted, so he must not be very good. Surely you did more research than that, Gene. And it's not just Gene, it's a lot of people. So surely everybody that wants to critique every hire that we make here, I'm sure you guys knew that Dowell Loggains turned down a coordinator job in the SEC last year, correct? Everybody knew that, right? I'm sure you guys know that I'm the fourth SEC head coach that's reached out to him in the last 2 weeks about coming to work for him. So we were fortunate to hire Dowell Loggains because there were a lot of other people that were interested in hiring Dowell Loggains as well. I'm sure you guys reached out to Bill Parcells, who Dowell worked for. Anybody? I'm sure the people on the outside, all the experts on social media, I'm sure they called Sean Payton, arguably one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time, to talk to Sean Payton about Dowell. I'm sure you reached out to Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. All those guys are guys that Dowell worked for. Did you call Connor Shaw? Alshon Jeffrey. Dowell coached Alshon Jeffrey with the Chicago Bears. And I'll keep my conversation with Alshon private, but it was pretty dang special what he told me. I talked to John Fox, former head coach of the Carolina Panthers, Chicago Bears, Denver Broncos, about Dowell. Clyde Christensen, current quarterbacks coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Sylvester Croom, longtime NFL coach who just went into the Hall of Fame for college football last week. James Franklin, current head coach at Penn State. Stan Drayton, current head coach at Temple University. All people that he worked with or Dowell was the coordinator for. So we hired a big-time coach and couldn't be more excited about hiring Dowell. And the text messages that I got from people that he's worked with or coached over the last however many years in the NFL validate that for sure. You don't last 16 years in the NFL like he has without being a really, really good football coach, and we're fortunate to have him here at South Carolina. Why Dowell Loggains? One, he's a fantastic person that I've known since I was an assistant coach here at South Carolina previously. Why Dowell? He's an elite recruiter. He's shown that in his 2 years already at the college level as well. I love the idea of being able to take what he's done in the NFL as an assistant coach and as a coordinator for multiple teams and marry that with what he's learned at Arkansas the last couple of years being a part of their offense and realizing that you can have quote unquote a pro style offense, but then also it doesn't have to be as wordy, complicated, voluminous, whatever you want to say. You can really narrow things down. So I think being able to take what they've done at Arkansas and what he's learned in his career and marry it to best fit us is pretty cutting edge, if you will me. He's the perfect fit for what we need right now as a football program. He makes our program better. His personality, his recruiting skills, his fit in that offensive staff room as well. He'll make us better. You know, we certainly did a lot of good things on offense last year here at South Carolina, but we need to be better, to say the least. We need to be more consistent, to say the least, and I believe that Dowell can help us do that. We've certainly got to cut down on turnovers. It makes me sick that 2 years in a row now we've turned the ball over more than any team in the SEC. So the fact that we've won 7 games and 8 this year with a chance to win 9, having turned the ball over more than any team in this conference, is a minor miracle in some ways. So we've got to do a better job of cutting down turnovers as well. The NFL, and Dowell will talk about it here in a second, I believe is all about matchups and getting the ball to your best players and finding ways to get them touches. I think he'll really help us being able to get the ball to our quote-unquote playmakers as well. And then being able to continue, like I said, to streamline our offense and what we're doing to make us better as well. He's had some conversations with recruits that we're recruiting or are currently committed, and I wrote down some of the responses of some of the text messages. One young man that's committed to us wrote back, "He's absolutely awesome, and he is the perfect guy for me to play for." You know, that was after one phone call that he had. So the response from recruits, and then he's talked to some of our current players as well, has been off the charts. Like I said, there's a lot of excitement and momentum going on right now with what we're doing here at South Carolina football as well, and got an opportunity to add to that now with hiring Dowell and then going into bowl prep starting tomorrow as well. So any questions before I turn it over to him?
Shane, first of all, will Dowell call plays in the bowl game?
No. Well, he and I really haven't even talked about that, but no, I'm telling him now he's not. So I think he knew that. No, it's things we talked about. He's going to be around here for the next what's today? Wednesday. We start practice tomorrow. He'll be here through the weekend, around recruits this weekend. Certainly, value his input, and he'll be around, but I don't think that's fair for him to come in and all of a sudden, take over the coaching of our offense right now.
And with play calling, obviously he hasn't done it at the college level before. So what did you see in him that says it's not going to be an adjustment, that he can handle that once it's time? Well,
he's done it in the NFL. And yes, the NFL and the college games are different, but you don't last as long as he did in the NFL and, be a coordinator for multiple teams, starting with the Tennessee Titans and one head coach, and then the Chicago Bears with a second head coach as well, and then Miami Dolphins and New York Jets without knowing what you're doing. And certainly it's different, but he'll tell you, and so much of the game planning and play calling is done during the week as well as a staff. And then certainly you got to have a feel for it and be able to do it on game days. But knowing what a football junkie he is and how intelligent he is, have no concerns about that either.
When you, I guess, did your research on Dowell and looked at all the circumstances with each team and whether or not he was actually calling plays, because some of the head coaches obviously do that in the NFL. How did you find that research, and how long did it take you to kind of come to the conclusions that you felt like you needed to reach after looking into all those circumstances?
It was a process. Now, when Dowell was the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans, I went to Nashville and spent some time visiting them and watching practice and going to meetings. When Dowell was with the Chicago Bears, Alshon was playing up there at the time, so I went up there one May and spent a couple days in Chicago. And I was able to go to meetings and watch practice and things like that and see Alshon when he was with the Dolphins. I went down to Miami a couple times and was around meetings and on the practice field. So and was in staff meetings as well with the offense. So I've seen him in those environments. So I knew a lot of that already. And then certainly I knew what I knew, but I know how important this hire is. I know how humongous this hire is for what's coming next as a program. So you guys know me, like I take my time and I'm going to be very thorough, and I'm going to talk to a lot of people, not just about Dowell. I talked to a lot of people about this opportunity and, kept coming back to him. But then just being able to talk to people that he's worked for in the NFL, general managers that reached out to me on their own just to, say, I haven't talked to Dowell, but here's what I think. And just seeing it with my own eyes at different places over his career as he's matured and gained experience, but then talking to people also as well validated that. And then, communication with players. I think it's important to talk to players that he's coached as well. And I was able to do that also.
Shane, were you surprised at all by any of the opt-outs or the transfer portal guys that you had, and how will that change how you prepare for the bowl game?
Opt-outs, no. I mean, those are conversations that we don't spend a ton of time talking about it during the season, but had a general idea just from talking to players, even some of those guys like Zach Pickens that came back to play this year. A lot of those weren't surprises. Transfers, I don't think you're ever surprised. It's it's tough out there right now, guys, and we're in a great situation here at Carolina. I mean, I look around and there's other schools that have close to 20 right now of their players in the portal and things like that, and you just realize that's part of it, and wish guys that aren't here well. I had a text message from somebody that transferred last year that played for another school yesterday, just checking on me and saying hello, and so I appreciate that. So try and leave on good terms and wish them well, but I don't mean this in a negative way. I don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about the guys that aren't here. We got a bunch of really special young men and people in this program right now that are here and excited to get back to work. And certainly it changes prep, a little bit. We were in that situation last year when Luke was hurt and Jason had already left at quarterback, and we weren't really sure what the quarterback situation was going to look. So we've been in that situation before, and we haven't really dove into it because it's been all recruiting and then coaches just kind of working on Notre Dame on their own the last couple of weeks. But we'll get back in here tomorrow as a staff and really kind of figure out the best plan of attack. But certainly it'll be more challenging when you're missing guys. But that's why we get paid to coach. Be creative and trying to come up with a game plan.
Hey, Shane, 2 questions for you. I know at the beginning of the search you said you wanted to find someone who fit the culture that you were building here. Also, Connor said that Coach Loggains is a home run when it comes to the culture that you are building here. Beyond the X's and O's, can you give us some specifics about why he fits that culture? And also, mention the transfers and opt-outs. How challenging is it trying to prepare a team for a bowl? And it's going to look much different than the one that you finished the regular season with, and also preparing to face a team that is also going to look different as well.
Yeah, you gave me 3 there, Rick. You testing me, man. I'm a little rusty. Dowell in the culture, because I know what kind of person he is. He's got a great, he's a great person, great family as well. That's important to me. You got to be able to work well with others in this building and help the people around you get better. And, as I went through this process, like I said, I know how important this hire is, and I kept trying to call somebody and find somebody to say something bad, about him. And it was not me calling and saying, hey, I'm interested in hiring Dowell Loggains as the offensive coordinator. Was calling just saying, hey, tell me what you know about Dowell Loggains. And it was just whoever I talked to continued to be over the top positive. I think he's got a great way with people of making everyone feel important, valuing everyone for what they bring to the table. That's evident with what he's been able to do in recruiting. That's evident with the fact the way that people at Arkansas feel about him and didn't want him to leave, whether it be current players or fans, staff, whoever. And then, like I said, just what I know about him as well. I think he'd be a fit from that. I know he'd be a fit from that standpoint. Transfer portal, the Notre Dame was the last one, and then ours.
Yeah, just how challenging it is, to get ready to play a game when you've lost.
Yeah, it's challenging in a lot of ways. It's kind of like going into January when we come back in January after the bowl game and we're starting new. It's going to be different. We played a lot of games this year with 2 and 3 tight ends on the field at times. Well, we're not going to be able to do that against Notre Dame, So you've got to be creative in what you do. And we got a lot of really good players in this program. So you figure out what gives you the best chance to be successful against the next opponent with the personnel that you have. And then we've got 2 weeks of practice to really get ready to do that. And then same thing with Notre Dame as well. I know they've lost some guys, in the transfer portal, and their team will look different as well. But I just think that's right now college football, and and bowl games. The teams that you're going to start seeing playing in bowl games are going to look a lot different than the teams you saw the last week of the regular season. And it's not a surprise. I mean, we knew the night before the Clemson game, we talked about it in the team meeting, that when we come back for the bowl, the people in this room, there's going to be some people in this room that aren't here when we start bowl prep. And we knew that then. So you just kind of figure out what you got and go coach, to quote Coach Spurrier, just go try and coach them up.
Shane, do you think Coach Loggains was successful in his last 4 years as an NFL coordinator? And if so, how do you define success?
I define success, I think you take the things that you have available to him, the things that you have available, and I think you've certainly got to look at every circumstance as well. I think you can take stats and shape them any way you want to shape them, Gene. I think there's a deeper story as well. I really didn't dive into exactly every game he coached in that 16-game season. But I also know from talking to John Fox, the former head coach of the Bears, he talked about some of the struggles they faced the year that Dowell was up there and Jay Cutler got hurt as your starting quarterback, correct? So, I didn't really research Jay's history, but when you lose your starting quarterback in the NFL, I think it's tough. Kyle Shanahan is considered probably the greatest or the best offensive coach, or one of the best offensive coaches in the NFL right now. And he was the offensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns when Dowell was the quarterback's coach. They worked together. I don't really know the history of the Cleveland Browns in that particular season, but I don't think it was very good that year as well. And nobody questions Kyle Shanahan's abilities. So he'll be the first to tell you there's things that certainly they could have been better. And when you're near the bottom of the NFL and in statistical rankings, surely you don't want to be there. But again, I think you can take any stat and shape it any way you want. And I think there's a deeper investigation that goes into that as well. I know enough from talking to people and knowing how football smart he is that I've got total confidence in that as well. And I wasn't picking on you, Gene. You're not the only one, man. All right, don't get all sensitive on me now, Gene. All right, come on. Dowell dealt with the New York City media for 2 years, so dealing with you guys will be cake. So.
Shane, I know.
That's a compliment, David. All right, okay. Yeah,
Shane, I think the last 3 or 4 guys you've hired have come at least immediately from NFL situations. I guess one, is that just a coincidence? And I know Sad and Jody had been college guys before that, but what about that transfers to what you're trying to build? Why is it that that's something maybe you've looked for? And I guess with Dowell more specifically, what about that you feel like fit with what you wanted now here?
Yeah, I don't think I didn't start out saying I'm going to hire somebody from the NFL that had an NFL background. I really didn't. And same thing when I hired Sat or any of those guys, Jody, Sterling Lucas. I'm looking for the best person available as well. And if I think Dowell's a great coach, but I think being in the college game the last 2 years, he'll probably tell you, and we talked about this a little bit, has made him even better as a coach being in college the last 2 years, for sure, and just seeing the similarities with the differences, but how to make it better. But I do think when you are able to hire somebody from an NFL background, I think it certainly is a bonus in a lot of ways. What you learn in the NFL, because it's all football all the time. You don't recruit. You go into the building, and if 90% of my day is recruiting and 10% is coaching, in the NFL, it's all coaching and just studying football. So I think there's value in that. I think from a recruiting standpoint, the fact that he's been in the NFL for so long and has coached so many different quarterbacks, whether it be successful veterans or rookies or whoever, it helps. Sterling Lucas being able to show a recruit or our current team some of the things he did with the Baltimore Ravens and Jacksonville Jaguars, some of the things we did on third downs this year, pressure-wise, or things that he brought from the Ravens that we utilized on defense. So I think there's value in that. But at the end of the day, Ben, I'm looking for the best coach and the best person available for a fit. And I know it's cheesy, but I used that analogy of that bus and wagon earlier, and I think it's the same thing with its coaches. It's all the people. I mean, this is a big I don't want to use the word corporation, but there's a lot of moving parts in this facility, from players to coach to staff, and you're trying to get all the pieces of the puzzle to fit the right way and keep moving it forward. And if it happens to be a guy with an NFL background, great, but just trying to find the right fit. Your Eagles are still on a roll.
They're cruising.
Oh man, it hurts.
With the decommits, with the portal right now, do you have any concerns at this point about trying to transition, a major coordinator and retention during that transition, and kind of what do the next steps look like to try to keep the guys that you have committed, keep the guys that you have on the roster as you make that switch?
I think it's a challenge for anyone, whether you're hiring a new coach or the staff is intact. I mean, it's just part of it. At the end of the regular season, other schools are trying to hire your coaches, and that's taking place here. We got a lot of successful people in this building that other schools are interested in. There's recruiting, there's the transfer portal. Same thing after the bowl game. There's going to be another wave of not here, but there's another wave of college football players that enter the transfer portal after bowl games as well. After that, there's the NFL season's they're going to start making changes, and people are going to be trying to hire coaches and stuff like that. So I think it's just one of those things. Everybody thinks the end of the season is kind of when you can kind of take a breath, but the 2 weeks at the end of the regular season, 3 weeks, and then the 2-3 weeks after the bowl game are like the most hectic time of the year, just because you're trying to put all those pieces in place, whether you're trying to hire, whether you have a new coach coming in or not. But like I said, it's one of those, Emily, that everybody's dealing with it right now across college football, and it's just the landscape right now with the portal and recruiting, that there's going to be changes and things like that. And you just keep trying to, recruit the best players available and best people available. And we've got a lot of those as well. Like I said, so many of those text messages, you win with people. And we've got some championship level people that are committed to this program and will be here soon, which I'm really excited about adding them. People don't talk about all the people that still are coming and that are still in this building right now as well. And Kai Kroger said it best. He tweeted it last week. All we got is all we need, or all we got is all we need, I think. So I thought that was pretty good, And we're trying to add some more to that as well, obviously.
As a Browns fan, I can give you some look back on that.
Yes, maybe you can educate everyone as well. Thank you.
Do we know who the quarterback's coach is going to be for bowl game?
No.
Not yet?
No.
And what were
I do, but we're not going to get into all that in here right now, so sorry.
And what were conversations like with Marshawn before he opted in into the portal?
They were good. We had we talked in my office. I think the Tuesday after the Clemson game, and it could not have been more positive. We had a fantastic conversation, and things were absolutely fantastic. And he went back home. He's home right now, and obviously when he got back home, some things in his mind changed that I wasn't aware of or that we didn't talk about that day. So talked on Sunday or Monday. I was up in D.C. actually recruiting all day Sunday and Sunday night, and we talked on Monday morning, him and his mom and I, for a long time. And, like I said, wish him well. Hi, Phil.
Thank you. Hey, got a couple for you.
Right.
Did you decide to part ways with Coach Satterfield after the Florida game?
Did I decide to part ways?
With Coach Satterfield after
I didn't
the
know.
Florida
I didn't know I parted ways with Sat. Who told you that?
It was reported by one of the Gamecock websites.
Oh, well, I know this is going to be shocking. One of the Gamecock websites was wrong. Sorry for anyone that reported that. There's a lot of false info out there, unfortunately. I got to deal with that with recruits and things like that, of things they read on the internet, which I hate to break it to you guys. The internet and Twitter is not real life. So, no, I did not decide to part ways with Sat after the Florida game.
Okay. And to follow up on Colin's question, as far as running the offense and the coordinating and all that, since it won't be Coach Loggains, do you have – I mean, obviously you have a plan. Can you share the plan?
No.
How you
I don't know if you were in the press conference that Sunday night in the stadium. I'm no disrespect, guys, but I'm probably not going to tell you guys, because to me that's a strategic advantage for Notre Dame if we say that whoever, Monterio, Justin, Greg Atkins, Lonnie Teasley, Dowell Loggains, Jody Wright, whoever is running the offense. And to me, you can go back and look at their backgrounds and where they've been as well. It'll be a group effort, Phil. No matter who calls the plays, we've all been working to put together a plan for the offense down in Jacksonville in a couple weeks, and that's what we're continuing to do. And when we get to Jacksonville on December 30th, we'll all be on the same page, and I'll be heavily involved, and whoever's calling it, we'll call it, but it'll be a group effort that we put together.
Kind of going to the other coordinator news here recently. Pete Lembo got an extension yesterday.
Yep.
Kind of what were those conversations like with him in the last week, and how important was it for you to just get him locked in for those extra 3 years now?
Yeah, it was important. It's important to keep a lot of these guys. Chance and Coach Tanner have been very supportive of the staff and the things that we want to do, and there'll be more hopefully coming here that we can announce here. But Pete was certainly somebody that throughout the season, that I knew, like a lot of our guys, that Pete was very valuable to this program and has done a great job with our special teams and program in general, and certainly wanted to reward him accordingly. So appreciate Ray and Chance and President Amaritas and our board for their support.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think my takeaway from what you were saying earlier was you were pretty satisfied with the offensive system y'all have been running the last couple of years. It may be just a little bit too complex in verbiage, but is that accurate? What makes you feel that way? And also, how did Dowell kind of sell himself in terms of being able to take the offense to the next level with a little bit more consistency?
Yeah, I think from my standpoint with the offense, we needed to be more consistent. There's no question about it. For as good as we looked against Tennessee, we know how we looked against Florida. And look, it's a grind every week in this league, guys. It's the toughest league in America, and there's some real dudes on defenses that we play. So you're not going to go out every single week and score 60. But I believe we've got to be more consistent, starting with me. I mean, it's not just all Sad, it's all of us, the entire offensive staff, myself, our players. We've got to be more consistent as well. I don't think we need to come in here and just completely blow up stuff. And we scored 63 points against Tennessee and 31 against a really good Clemson defense. So not all is broken, but we absolutely need to be better. And, Dowell's got the freedom, terminology. We talked about it, terminology, schematics. I mean, we hired him for a reason. But I believe, the reason I hired him and whatnot is because, one, he can take some of the things that they did in the NFL, and there are some similarities with what we did last year and what his background is, but then taking the things they did at Arkansas also and blending that with us to continue to make us better. Arkansas certainly has done some really good things on offense with Coach Briles, their offensive coordinator, and Dowell's worked very closely with him the last 2 years, and like I said, has learned a lot to make our program better also, and believe we can. So we'll get in there. I mean, right now it's getting in here and meeting the players and kind of seeing our personnel and what best fits for what he wants to do, and then trying to win a bowl game, and then we'll get back in here in January and get full speed ahead on what the 2023 offense here at South Carolina is going to look like, because obviously there's a lot of people that aren't in our program right now that will be a part of our program in 2023, whether it be incoming freshmen, whether it be transfers that come in, and we're in the process of doing that with Dowell to make our offense better. And like I said, the response that we've gotten from a lot of young men that we're trying to bring into the program about him has been over the top, ecstatic. So looking forward to getting to work. So sorry, he'll keep me up here forever. My opening press conference, he kept me up here for an hour and a half answering questions as well. So I'm going to sit down and excited for you guys to get to know a great guy and a great coach, Dowell Loggains. Thank you.
I'm very prayerful that everyone has a boss like that. I want to start off by thanking Coach Beamer, Coach Tanner, Chance, the Board of Trustees, and the opportunity to be here. It's such a great place. I had an opportunity to play in the SEC from 2000, 2004. Played here as a player. Haven't got to coach at this place yet, but I'm looking forward to it. My family is. We're excited to be Gamecocks and get this process started.
Hey, Dowell, David Cloninger with the Charleston Post and Courier.
Yes, sir.
Being a play caller in the NFL, I'm sure there's going to be some kind of major adjustment to do it in college. I know you just got here, but what does that adjustment look like? What all do you have to do to say, all right, I got to do this to get ready to start calling plays in college?
Yes, sir. I don't think the play calling process is any different than it is in the NFL at the highest level. What is different is field dimensions and hashes. and space and tempo and all those things that in college football are very important. And that's where I think if you transition straight from the NFL to college football, I think it can be tough because it is a different game in some ways. Obviously, the NFL is the highest level of football, and it's, to Coach Beamer's point, there's not a 20-hour rule. And you're with your quarterbacks and your players all day, and you're just grinding ball. And that's what it is. And outside of evaluating some players. But going to Arkansas for those 2 years gave me it will be such a benefit for me because now you can see the hash plays that you need, the space plays that you need that aren't as important in the NFL because it's still 53 and a third, but those hashes are 6 yards. And now there's a field boundary, and there's a real element of that. So calling the plays is calling the plays, but the 2 years of Arkansas have been extremely beneficial for me that way, understanding the college game a little bit more.
Hey, Coach. Jeremiah Holloway with the State. Welcome to Columbia. This team, of course, next year is going to look, pretty different from what it was this past year, I guess, with, transfer portal and things like that. But from what you've seen from South Carolina's offense, obviously last year when you all played them and just any other tape that you've seen, what about that team, or I guess what do you see as maybe some of the things that they do well and some of their identity on offense and things that you would look to help them improve upon?
Okay, Jeremy, I'm going to kind of answer your question, but going to go in a different direction with it. We played you guys week 2, and we obviously won the game in a fashion that I felt like we were the better team that day and maybe for the whole season. And I've gotten to this point in my career where I can be very picky with jobs. And at this point, you start picking people and you pick cultures. And to play you guys in week 2, and you guys, a talented football team, no question, but what you guys started with in week 2 to how you finished, there was something special about this place and this culture and what's being created to finish the way you did. And that goes back to Coach Beamer and what he's created here with the culture. And that's what really enticed me with this job. That was the opportunity. That was like something special is going on there. I want to be part of it. And it wasn't a football thing. The football will take care of itself. We got a good staff. We got a great head coach, and you got great kids, and you see they're bought in. Because how do you lose that game in week 2 in the SEC and finish the way you did? And it goes back to the culture you're building. I've watched obviously some tape. This last 3 or 4 days has been a grind and getting caught up in a lot of different ways, but get up to speed that way. I know that we've got good players, and our job is to get the most out of each player. And that's how I would define success is, did you max out everyone to the highest level of their capability?
Hey, Coach. Emily Adams at the Greenville News.
Eagles fan?
Yes, sir. I'm from Philly originally.
I grew up in Texas, so.
Well, I guess we'll have fun on Christmas Eve then. We will. You've been really touted as a strong recruiter. Just, in the NFL, you don't have to do that. So where did you kind of build that skill set, and, what do the next couple weeks look like for you in terms of getting on the ground recruiting for South Carolina?
Yes, ma'am. The hard thing about the NFL is you don't get to pick your players. And, when we were in Chicago in 2016, talking about Alshon, had a great year for us. And he was our best player on offense, and he goes to free agency. And in my mind that time, I'd only coached in pro football. And you get frustrated because you're like, man, we just let our best receiver go. And that guy's not replaceable. And so in the back of my mind, I was always intrigued with college football. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what, if you go to college football, you're accountable for your roster. Like, if you don't have a good enough roster, that's your fault. And you determine how well and how hard you recruit, and you determine the success you can have. And you felt like, hey, you have a little bit more ownership in the roster building part of it. And I think recruiting comes down to relationships. And I don't think you can fool an 18 to 22-year-old. They see right through it. And I consider myself a people person. I love the recruiting process because you get to meet a lot of cool kids and a lot of parents and come from different situations and different backgrounds. And you get to tell them and sell them, and not really sell them, because I don't really consider it recruiting. I consider it building relationships, and building relationships to the point where they either a mom, a dad, auntie, a grandma trust you with their kids. And that's a more awesome responsibility then you can imagine as a coach, and I take being the play caller at South Carolina is a huge responsibility, but you're also going to mold 18 to 22-year-olds into becoming young adults, and that's an awesome responsibility as well that I take very seriously. And I think that when you talk to recruits and parents, I think they feel that, and they feel sincere versus fake, and they feel recruiting versus building relationships. And we have such an awesome program to sell. We got a great head coach to sell, an awesome fan base. There's no game day atmosphere in America like this place, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Hi, Coach. Rick Henry, WIS-TV.
Yes, sir.
When you made the transition from the NFL to college, how long did it take you to feel comfortable just making that transition, and with the differences between the two? And also, how important is the spring going to be for you as you implement your offense with a new team? Yes, sir,
Rick. So when I left the Jets, I had a little brief stint with Coach Franklin at Penn State for about 3 months. And he's a guy that I have a ton of respect for. When I was in Tennessee, he was the head coach at Vanderbilt. And I used to wear him out I was at practice all the time. I was curious about recruiting. He's a relentless recruiter. And I wanted to know more about it before, hey, I want to know, do I want to go jump in college football, or do I want to continue to go coach in the NFL? And so it was an awesome opportunity for me to go and learn at a guy who's run a program for a long time, had a ton of success at Vanderbilt, and doing great things at Penn State. And so I got to see the nuts and bolts of his program from the inside out, which also gave me confidence, like, hey, I want to go coach in college football. Because when you've never recruited, you're worried, like, hey, what's this recruiting like? You guys have heard the horror stories, like, but I've really enjoyed that process, and I needed that to say, hey, this is something I want to do. So when the Arkansas opportunity came back to go back to my alma mater and coach, and it was, I think it surprised a lot of people that I was willing to go become the tight end coach, but it was an SEC job, and it was a chance to prove to people I could recruit, and I needed to do that. I know the football aspect of it, but I also wanted to prove that I could be recruited at a high level. So that was part of the process. And then I think the spring is really important to get to know your players and find out what each one of them can do. And your job as a coach, like, it's not that we're not going to have one system and say, hey, this is our system, you have to fit it. We got to find out what each one of our guys does best and put them in that situation. That's how you create success. And that's the only way to maximize a person. It's not just trying to, fit one player into the system. And that's what you do in spring ball. You don't play. There's no scoreboard. You're creating competition on the roster, and you're creating depth for your team, and you're building fundamentals. And we're going to find out what each guy's skill set is. So that the spring is extremely important for our roster, for our staff, and for myself.
Hey, Dowell. I'm Matt Dowell with Watch Fox from Dowell to Dowell. It's nice to meet you. Welcome to Columbia.
D-O-W-E-L-L?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Nice to meet you. Welcome to Columbia.
I won't forget your name.
You guys have talked about culture so much. Just to go deeper into that, how would you describe the culture here at South Carolina, and how does it compare to other places that you've been?
Well, your perception from the outside when you watch this thing is like, okay, there's an excitement there, and it's something that people want to be a part of. And when you create that culture, I can only imagine the phone calls and text messages that Coach Beamer got about every opportunity that comes open, because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think that's a great reflection of Coach Beamer and Emily and the culture they've created here with Coach Tanner and Chance. And there's you guys know it, you guys feel there's part of programs, it's just something special about it. And sometimes it's hard to put into words. You just know you want to be a part of it. And it looks like a lot of fun. And you're watching those Tennessee games and the Clemson games, and you're like, that's awesome. Like, how do you get to be part of that? And there's a feeling when you walk in the door. It's how you're received as a new coach, and it's how their support staff here is texting your wife. And it's the small things, and it's the little things that matter in this whole profession, because it's about people. And Coach Beamer said it, and I believe it with all my heart, is you win with people. And they've got great people here. They've got great support staff. They got great leadership, and they have a great head coach. And it seems like we have great kids. And I'm really excited to meet some of those. So that's what the culture is. It's a bunch of little things that add up into big things, but the little things are what counts the most. And there's a special feeling that you have when you're part of something special. And sometimes it's from the outside, it looked really cool and really exciting. And watching those game day atmospheres in South Carolina, I've heard so much about the Gamecock Walk and goosebumps and tears. And I got to coach Connor Shaw in Cleveland and Chicago. And that guy is a diehard South Carolina guy. And he's the toughest player I've ever coached. And I heard about how him and Alshon talked about the program. And I think they both played for Coach Spurrier. But then to see what Coach Beamer's been able to create here is just something special about it. And I'm really excited to be a part of it. I know I said a lot, but I don't know if any of it made sense right there. But I think it's just the feeling you get when you walk through the door of it's something big is happening here.
Hey, Dowell, Ben Portnoy with the State newspaper.
Yes, sir.
In terms of, obviously, you're going to be coaching quarterbacks here. What does it look like to be coached by you as a quarterback? What are you kind of looking for in that position? I guess, what does that kind of look like on a day-to-day basis? How do you kind of attack that room?
Yeah, I think it's what kind of I mentioned to Rick is finding the best, taking what they do and making it better. Like when you get to this age, you're not going to change a throwing motion. You can tweak it and you can shorten it and you can get the ball out quicker. You can coach the lower body extremely hard. You can teach guys to have rhythm in the throws, and there's ways to do that. I do think that the advantage of coming from the NFL is that you learn a lot. You learn a lot from quarterbacks that you've coached. And when I was my first job as a quarterback coach, I coached Kerry Collins, who was 6 or 7 years older than me, and he'd been coached by Sean Payton and North Turner. And then I had Vince Young for a little while, and then I had Matt Hasselbeck, who was older than me and one of the smartest people I've ever met. And then you go coach Jay Cutler, and I learned as much about the throwing mechanics from those guys and having just conversations because these guys don't have class. Like we're sitting around all day watching tape and watching throwing motions and breaking down the details of their fundamentals, and you work together with them. You're not telling them. It's not a dictatorship. You're working with them and saying, hey, do you think you should widen your base? Do you think you missed that throw to the left because your target line was bad? And you figure out that a lot of these NFL players can self-correct. They're so talented they can overcome bad fundamentals. But it's just that being, I love coaching quarterbacks because I love the fundamentals of it. I love the intangibles that come with it. I think you can make a huge difference on people that are willing to work. Now, the player has to be willing to do that and commit, and it's not easy and it's really hard. And outside of being the head coach, and you could argue whether the quarterback or offensive coordinator is the most scrutinized position in football. It's a heavy burden to wear the crown, and just be able to teach these guys what I've learned from 17 years of coaching at the highest level at the quarterback position, and some of the really, really good players, Pro Bowlers, and that we've been around. Just be able to pour all of that into the 17 years into a person, which excites me because get a chance to make a kid better, and that's why you coach, is to see, hey, how good can we make you, and how are you willing to work, and like you spend all your energy to making a kid better.
Hey, Dowell, Pete Iacobelli from the AP.
Yes, sir.
And I did pull for you as a Jets fan in 19 and 20. It's tough to say.
Those were some rough years.
Yeah, they sure were. Dowell, on a brighter note, what does a Dowell Loggains offense look like when it's clicking, when things are working? What do you like to do out there?
Pete, correct? Yeah. Yes, sir. Pete, I know I don't want to be – I told Steve this. I don't want to speak in a bunch of coaching cliches. You guys are going to find this out about me. I want to be very honest and very transparent with everything. And for me to make any kind of statement of anything other than truth right now would be like just propaganda, is maximize our players. Like really find out what we have, and I don't know right now. And we need spring ball, Rick, to find that out. I need to know what these guys can do. Our staff's going to do. They'll be able to fill me in on their opinions and of expectations and what a guy can and can't do. But we really want to build an offense that, obviously, number one, I think the most important thing about offense is you create pressure on defense. And you can do that in a lot of ways. You got to create conflict, whether that be RPOs, tempo, play action passes. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. But offense, defense, especially, is really about creating pressure on the opponent. And the way to do that is you find out who your playmakers are and put them in spots that create conflict on the defense. And that's how I think that the one thing in college football that you have to attack is 53 and a third. Like everyone wants to attack vertical. But in college, it's space and pace. That's a real thing. I've watched for 2 years our offense that we evolved in. It's not Baylor. It wasn't Ole Miss, the versions of it there. But it was also with the ability to run the football and going really, really fast wasn't always the answer, but being able to play with tempo is. So we're really going to try to find out what our players can do, starting with, and I think there's a priority in that. It starts with quarterback, and then goes to offensive line, and then you find out what your skill guys do well, but you have to build it that way through the quarterback's eyes and the offensive line, and then how do we get our skill guys the ball? So I hope that to be successful is that we create balance, which means multiple touches for our playmakers, and we don't come in here after a game and have a conversation about, hey, why did so-and-so only have 2 catches, or why did so-and-so only have 9 carries, and those things that you hope that you maximize your players.
Hey, Dowell, Colin Taylor from Gamecocks Central. You mentioned the quarterback position.
Yeah.
What have you seen when you got to watch Spencer Rattler this year in week 2, and what have conversations been like with him if you've had them?
Yeah, we have had. I'm sorry that we share the Browns experience, but I actually enjoy. That was where I got to coach Connor Shaw for the first time, so there were positives in it as well. But Spencer's been good. I don't want to go into too much detail of what we've talked about, but week 2, I'm going to be. This is just me, who I am. I was concerned about where you guys were going to go after we played y'all, because the way we beat y'all. And then and you saw, like, it was there, like there were some plays, there were some injuries and things, but to be honest, at the end of the season, I was kind of shocked how you guys finished. Like, you got better every week, and I thought those last 2 games, and I hadn't had a chance to really dive in and talk to Spencer about this, but he played free, and for whatever reason, he got to the point where he looked very confident, and it didn't feel that way all year. I think that's probably what creates some inconsistency. It's easy for me to sit up here and judge that, but that would be my observation, which could be wrong. But those last 2 games, he felt like he was getting it was the best version of him, and he was confident and played free. And that's really, you have to get to the point in this game where there's an absence of fear. Like, you have to get that way where, and that's part of the culture as well that you create, and that we want to create as well offensively. Like, you get to the point where you're confident, and knowledge builds confidence, and confidence allows you to play fast. And at that point, those last 2 games, that's what it felt like. I was extremely impressed with him. We got to do a great job recruiting him back, and I told someone to be the biggest recruit since my wife. And that's, we got to do a good job with that, and I'm excited to, get back here and talk to him and visit face-to-face as well.
Hey, Coach Loggains, Gene Sapikoff from the Charleston Post and Courier.
Yes, sir.
Did Coach Beamer correctly state that you turned down an SEC offensive coordinator job last year? In the last month, have you had any offensive coordinator job offers, and if so, how many?
Gene, I respect the question. I think we all in here know that Coach Beamer is a very honorable and honest person, and I'm going to leave it at that. Like, I don't want to speculate on this. I have the job that I wanted. I'm excited about this opportunity. My family is. We're extremely humbled and understand the awesome responsibility we have.
Hey, I'm Alan Cole with GamecockScoop.com on Rivals. You mentioned evolution, and kind of Beamer was talking about blending some college and some NFL stuff. How do you feel like you've changed as a play caller, or maybe not as a play caller, but just your offensive philosophy since you got to college, and how do you kind of anticipate that moving forward with a new roster now?
Yeah, I think that's it's kind of the vision, right, of like what this thing is. And I don't know that I would have the same vision if I hadn't spent the 2 years at Arkansas. And I think that's where it became obvious to me. The hardest thing to do in college football is to tackle in space. It's just hard, and you don't do that as much in the NFL, and the NFL DBs are really good. The DBs in this conference are really good. But it's still, like, when you can create space, it just becomes very difficult to do to get people down. So I think that's where, I think for the first time in the last 4 or 5 years, the first time in football is things used to start in the NFL and go to college and then down to high school. Well, things now are going from high school to college to the NFL, and you're seeing more of these offenses, the Kansas Cities, the Eagles, they play with more space now. And it's for those reasons, like the evolution of the game is like creating space. And how there's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's a lot of ways to change the presentation to do it, but I would not have had that same vision if I didn't spend time in college football and understand, and also listen to, we had a really good defensive coordinator at Arkansas, Barry Odom, who just became the head coach at UNLV, and just to hear those guys talk about how much space bothers them and how many missed space tackles there are in college football, and people don't people don't practice like they used to. There are no more two-a-days, and you're not just tackling all day. And I think it's the lost art a little bit of being able to block and tackle and just the core fundamentals of football that I think that you have to present in your offense at college football.
I'm Hale McGranahan with thebigspur.com, 24/7 Sports.
Did you say Owen?
Hale.
Hale, okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yes.
L-E or I-L?
H-A-L-E.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you clarifying. Some people have trouble with it.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll ever write your name, but I wanted to know because I care.
Do you want to give my last name a shot? It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I'm good with Hale.
All right, cool. When you're evaluating, recruiting, offering quarterbacks, what are some of those main things, main traits you're looking for with those guys?
Yeah, I think with young people, one of the biggest things that sticks out, especially in today's age of transfer portal, instant gratification, NIL, all those things, is emotional stability. You want a kid that's emotionally tough, that's been through hard things in their life, because most times if you've been through hard things, then you're willing to stick things out because you know everything in life is hard. And then, so I think it's a natural throwing motion. It's a guy that plays with a base. I mentioned to someone earlier, it might have been Ben, I don't think you can change the throwing motion. And I think the people that say they can coach accuracy, I think you can improve it a little bit, but some of it's God-given and a loose arm and playing with a base. And what playing with a base is you play with your feet apart. Because in the pocket, when it's like a phone booth. When everything starts shrinking, you have to be able to stand there and sit on a spot and make a throw. And there's also the courage to stare down the barrel when you know someone's coming, you know you're going to get hit, and it's going to hurt. But it's 3rd and 7, and it's the fourth quarter in a big game in the SEC, and you got to be able to hit the dig. And when we call dagger, like you have to be able to throw that and sit in there. And so I think there's a mental makeup of it that I think the NFL scouting process has huge advantages. When we go into high schools at Arkansas, when I was there, people would laugh at me because I would go talk to the trainer and the student managers and ask about the kid and ask the counselor and the teachers and the people at the convenience store. But I also wanted to know, especially at that position, quarterback, how important the mental make of it is. Can you handle the burden of being a quarterback in the SEC? It's hard. You guys are hard on people. Our fan base is hard. And all the fan bases, because it's a heavy burden to wear the crown, and you have to be able to handle that in the SEC and the NFL. Those two places are different. And if you can't, then you'll crumble. And that's what makes it really hard. It's the physical attributes of a good throwing motion, playing with a base, and being accurate, and also be able to extend plays. Like you can't sit on the spot anymore and just sit back there and be a statue and expect to have the 92 Dallas Cowboy offensive line and be able to sit back there and do that. So there's a lot of things that go into it. Those are probably the biggest things when you're looking at quarterbacks, and you got to get on campus and watch them throw. There's nothing like watching a kid throw live, and the tape can trick you, and it's hard to evaluate sometimes, and not all tape is the same. It's not standard. Like there's some programs that have better tape than others, so we got to get these kids here. Why South Carolina? An awesome recruiting base. Like you're close to a lot of different things. There's no excuse not to get the best kids in the country here because we have great facilities, we have great leadership, and we have an opportunity to get them here because we're regionally we have strong recruiting ties here.
Thank you. Hey, Coach, Phil Kornblut with the Sports Talk Media Network here in South Carolina. Unapologetic Packers fan, and quarterbacks are fine in Green Bay. We're happy with our QBs.
You should.
Yeah.
You should be.
We like our guys.
And Lambeau's an awesome place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Went there one time.
Unfortunately, I've been there too many times.
Yeah.
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 With
I don't
Aaron
apologize.
Rodgers and Brett Favre and a lot of good players. Yeah.
Also hate the Bears, so you know how that goes, the rivalry. Do you, coming in new, do you tear up the playbook from before and start anew with terminology and all that? And also, I don't know how accurate this is, but one of the things we'd heard about the Coach Satterfield offense was that it was very complex and players had trouble at times picking it up. They were thinking more than reacting. Is your offense going to be extremely complex and hard for the guys to pick up? So they're doing more thinking than reacting.
So 2-part question. I really want to find out about our quarterback situation. To be completely honest, like if I want Spencer to have a say in some of the things and have a voice in that, and I want to know what he's comfortable with. I do think there's merit, and I think I've had great conversations with NFL coaches from my transition of, okay, we're far off right now when I say we as coaches from the NFL to college. And when I first got in the NFL, when you get in the coach, in 2005, my first year, and went to Dallas with Parcells and Sean Payton, is the coolest thing is you're sitting there watching NFL films and you're watching John Gruden mic'd up and he's just giving it to Chris Sims because Sims can't get the play call out in 17 words. And you're like, that's what I want to be. I want to coach and be like that. Well, then you're sitting in the NFL and I don't have a 20-hour rule, and I watch these rookies come in and can't get a play call and can't get the huddle broke. And you're like, man, why this doesn't seem that hard. Like, you're not studying enough and you're not putting in the time you need. And then you come to college football. You're like, oh, man, they got class. They're 18 years old. I don't remember what it was like when I was 18, but I had a lot of crap going on in my life that football wasn't always the most important thing. I had to study. I had to find a girlfriend. I had to hang out with the boys and all that stuff. So what I have learned, I've told my friends in pro coaching that there's a disconnect there, and it comes with verbiage. And I made the comment earlier to my guy from Cleveland that knowledge builds confidence, and confidence allows you to play fast. And some of that is reducing verbiage as much as you can to make it fit where it still makes sense. And you don't have to have a 17-word play call. And I don't know that I would have known that if I didn't come for 2 years and watch college football and understand exactly what these guys are being taught, because these NFL offenses they're awesome, and they are super sophisticated. And you also get paid, and you're full-time. That's your job full-time. You're expected to be there at 7 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock compared to a 20-hour rule. So it's crazy to think that we're going to try to have pro-style concepts like that they've had here. Obviously, they're very sound that way, but how much can we reduce the terminology and still be efficient and streamlining? The biggest thing I've learned from college football was the space and pace of the game and the ability to communicate with signals and as few words as possible. And what I've been impressed with is how fast these kids learn a signal opposed to words. For whatever reason, it just hits their brain, and where you don't even have to say something, but you give a signal and everybody knows what to do. And there's a lot more one-word play calls in college football, and I think that's where the biggest transition for a college quarterback is, going from college football to pro football. But you can still run pro-style concepts and be able to communicate and signal in a fast way. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you.